Welcome to National Poetry Month. National Poetry Month begins today, April 1st, so it seemed appropriate to share a couple of poems from two iconic American poets as we start National Poetry Month. The first, both from the 19th century, the first is Emily Dickinson, who was often quite terse in her poetry, and she was ahead of her time when it came to social distancing, as those of you who know anything about her life are aware. She spent a good part of her time just in her home, writing these wonderful poems. One of her very well-known poems begins, "I dwell in possibility." Here it is. I dwell in possibility, a fairer house than prose, more numerous of windows, superior for doors, of chambers as the cedars, impregnable of eye, and for an everlasting roof, the gambrels of the sky, of visitors, the fairest, for occupation, this, the spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradise. Emily Dickinson. Very different human being and a very different poet, also from the 19th century, about the same era, is Walt Whitman. His Leaves of Grass, the final edition, is a pretty substantial volume. He was not all about social distancing. He loved crowds. He loved being with other people, learning from other people, seeing what they were doing. In any case, he was wordier than Emily, and I've chosen a few brief passages from his poem "Crossing Brooklyn Ferry," and I'll begin with the first section and then skip around for a minute or two. Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. Flood tide below me, I see you face to face. Clouds of the west, sun there, half an hour high, I see you also face to face. Crowds of men and women attired in the usual costumes, how curious you are to me. On the ferry boats, the hundreds and hundreds that cross, returning home, are more curious to me than you suppose. And you that shall cross from shore to shore, years hence, are more to me, and more in my meditations than you might suppose. Others will enter the gates of the ferry and cross from shore to shore. Others will watch the run of the flood tide. Others will see the shipping of Manhattan, north and west, and the heights of Brooklyn to the south and east. Others will see the islands, large and small. 50 years hence, others will see them as they cross. The sun, half an hour high, 100 years hence, or ever so many 100 years hence, others will see them, will enjoy the sunset, the pouring in of the flood tide, the falling back to the sea of the ebb tide. It avails not, time nor place, distance avails not. I am with you, you men and women of a generation, or ever so many generations hence. Just as you feel when you look on the river and sky, so I felt. Just as any of you is one of a living crowd, I was one of a crowd. Just as you are refreshed by the gladness of the river and the bright flow, I was refreshed. Just as you stand and lean on the rail, yet hurry with the swift current, I stood, yet was hurried. Just as you look on the numberless masts of ships and thick-stemmed pipes of steamboats, I looked. Closer yet, I approach you. What thought you have of me now, I had as much of you. I laid in my stores in advance. I considered long and seriously of you before you were born. Who is to know what should come home to me? Who knows, but I am enjoying this. Who knows, for all the distance, that I am as good as looking at you now, for all you cannot see me. Selections from Walt Whitman's Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. So greetings from Emily Dickinson, greetings from Walt Whitman, all these years hence. Distance avails not. And that's true for us too in these days of physically, socially distant. but distance avails not when it comes to the connections we can make in our hearts and in our lives every day. And so, from here at the Old Ship Parish House, I, Ken Reed Brown, say farewell for now, be safe, and be well.